Hi, welcome to our talk. I'm Ruth Singer and this is Ben McIntyre. Before I start, I'd just like to say a few words about Linda Barwick on her retirement. Um, I first got to know Linda Barwick when I was working for her on the Western Arnhem Land Songs Project, doing some archiving and adding some annotation of Maung language. And I got to see the kind of thoughtful way she went about archiving and also interdisciplinary collaborations between musicologists and linguists and other researchers. And since then, I've co-authored a paper with her and done some other things. And I've continued to work with her students, Isabel O'Keefe and Reuben Brown. And it's been a real opportunity to learn through them about her approach to collaborating with Indigenous communities around Indigenous knowledges and collaborative presentations, collaborative research, and collaborative co-authoring. So I've learned a lot from her through them and from them as well, of course. So in our talk, we're going to talk about the OpenDictionary framework, which is a new framework that Ben is developing for Indigenous language dictionaries. And specifically, specifically, we're working on a new Maung online dictionary. So this aims to provide access to the Maung dictionary database for a range of users and to complement the new print dictionary coming out in July. And it will form part of a set of digital resources at maungarok.org. It's been funded by the Indigenous Languages and Arts Scheme. And some of the new features that I wanted for this second Maung online dictionary are a cleaner modern interface, which is also more legible, a fuzzy search option, support for media, and copyright attributions. And I'd just like to mention some of the many Maung people who've been working on this dictionary, actually developing this dictionary for over 50 years. And these two sisters, Rosemary Urabadi and Nita Garajallalug, have been collecting and refining the information in the dictionary for many decades. So why do we need a new Maung online dictionary? The 2015 version, made with Lexique Pro and Robin Loughnane's extension to it, aren't really up to date in the current web environment. When we started this project in 2019, other new initiatives which I looked into, such as Mother Tongues, which has been designed specifically for Native American languages, were still in their infancy, and it seemed like it might be difficult to get a dictionary ready in the time frame of the project. That original Maung dictionary project was 2 years, and we've been funded for another 2 years to work on a Gunbalang one. Meanwhile, Margaret Carew had already begun work with Ben on developing a new framework, so it seemed like a good opportunity to develop this further. So some of the advantages of the Maung Open Dictionary, you can import a text file easily, and the Maung one is in the Toolbox MDF format. It's easy to upload new versions. I've been updating it constantly while I work on the print one. Fuzzy search is also an important feature. Spelling Indigenous languages is a big challenge for most people. Even most speakers of Indigenous languages never get the chance to fully control all the spelling options in their language. Particularly in Maung, where there hasn't been a bilingual school program since 2000, most Maung speakers are not fully confident with Maung spelling. How we've got the current version at the moment, you can choose standard view or linguist view. So you can display the head word as either a fully inflected word or just, as linguists prefer, as a root. There's also presentation of copyright information for the media, which is trying to compensate for the lack of recognition for creators of images in many dictionaries of Indigenous languages. So the photographers and the illustrators are all acknowledged, and April Campbell will be talking about this in and their group in this conference. So just to give a quick tour. Not sure what's happening over here, but let's have a look. Okay. Luckily not an actual email. Here we go. So here's the main interface that you find when you're looking for the dictionary. So once you start typing, words will start to appear. So I look for the verb giwani, sit. So first in your list, you get the verb giwani, and then you get all the co-verb constructions that you can form with giwani. So this takes you to giwani, gives you images, examples, attribution, and semantic domain. Then if you click on one of the co-verb constructions, like ngalakalak, it takes you to the co-verb itself, ngalakalak, which speakers often don't recognize, especially smaller co-verbs on their own. And then you get all the specific co-verb constructions with different verbs. So you can find them there. I'll just quickly show you one with a photo. And give you an example of the English search. Now I'll hand over to Ben to show you the admin interface.
Okay. Oops, share screen here. Okay. So this is the dictionary interface. It's designed for more than one dictionary. Obviously, there's issues about who's allowed to see what in terms of putting together dictionaries. So that's something we haven't dealt with yet, but one person can have more than one dictionary on the go. So if we edit the Hmong dictionary, we can see some of the, let's take a minute. Yep. So this is the basic information about the dictionary, such as the name. You'll notice here you can also have different, these are basically different orthographies for the dictionary, different fonts and character sets. We're not actually really using these at the moment because Hmong is the system we've got at the moment doesn't use non-English characters, so we don't have that particular issue. This is the toolbox shoebox tag setup for the dictionary. So you can define what these different tags mean and how they're incorporated into the structure of the dictionary. These are background images, which we haven't set yet. We've got an attributions list, so we can put in different lists of media with the attributions. We've got semantic domains. And we've got a paradigm list, which we're still in the process of implementing. The business part of the dictionary here is where you do the imports. So it's as simple as selecting a file, and we've got a few options here, and then clicking import will import a shoebox file. It'll completely delete the existing dictionary and replace it with the information in the toolbox file. And we've got various analytics here. So this gives you transparency into what happened when the file was imported. We've got a structure log that will show you the structure of the dictionary and where all the tags sit in it. An import log, which will tell you about any errors that might have happened. And we've got the ability to download a check log, which does things like check for missing cross-references, checks for, say, where the dictionary refers to a media file and the media file doesn't exist, or it has a different name or something like that. So it'll just check for a range of things that might go wrong with the dictionary, and that once it brings your attention to them, they're usually quite easy to fix. So back to you, Ruth.
Alrighty. Yeah, so other features we'd like to add for the Hmong dictionary, for example, adding a link to to the source for examples, so they could link to the PARADISEC file, which has that recording in it. A children's view where you can see on the entries with media files. An alphabetical browse view, just if people want to go straight to looking through words rather than enter something in the search. Enhance the mobile friendliness and have an offline option for when the internet isn't working very well, which happens a lot at Warwick. And as part of the current Indigenous Languages and Arts project, we've already started preparing the Gunbalang dictionary file to make an open dictionary version for Gunbalang as well.
Okay, so at this point, I'll say a few words. So yeah, my name's Ben McIntyre. My background is in, well, my tertiary training was in electrical engineering and electronic engineering, but I've been a professional software developer since the late 80s. So the way I got interested in this was I did the Yolngu and Language and Culture course at Charles Darwin University in the late 1990s, which was a big eye-opener, and it also had some of the best digital learning tools that I've come across really almost till today. So I just became really interested in the power of those tools and, you know, contributing to developing those tools. I'm not a linguist, I'm not an anthropologist, so you know, I apologize in advance if I say something inappropriate or do something inappropriate. The Open Dictionary project began as just a personal project that I put together because I wanted to see what I could do. And there's been various, initially, as Ruth mentioned, I worked with Margaret Carew on the first round of the project, and we got a bit of funding to help progress the project a lot faster. So the project has proceeded with a combination of funding and voluntary time. Okay, why the Open Dictionary framework? So there's a few problems with developing dictionaries for Indigenous languages. Obviously, there's a huge diversity of language groups in Australia, often with relatively small numbers of speakers. So that the implication, or because of that fact, the funding is very fragmented and inconsistent. And also these projects tend to be a little bit more complicated than usual. So you often need reasonably specialised tools to deal with things like non-English characters. And that's something that's also developed fairly rapidly over the last 10 years in terms of how those characters are represented and the technology used. So where that brings us to is that over the past 20 years, there's been a lot of one-off grants and projects that have been, you know, had varying degrees of success, but have often become sort of one-off things which haven't really been there's not much opportunity for reuse of the technology, and a lot of them are stuck with the technology they were developed with at the time, which unfortunately becomes out of date very rapidly. Okay, next slide. Yeah, so the Open Dictionary project was really designed as like a Swiss Army knife tool that would interoperate between a whole bunch of different formats. So it was designed to deal with different orthographies of languages so that you could input text from a language, say, in different orthographies, and it would translate between them. And you could select whichever orthography you wanted to view and view all the materials in that one, for example. It was designed to import and export things like toolbox files, which are text-based, offer consistency checking, and do translation into other formats, and to provide a visual web interface for a dictionary, and it also provides the opportunity for collaboration. We obviously want to fully support all media and offer an offline capability, so this can be run without an internet connection. And it would be ideal also if we had the ability to export for things like print media. There are some excellent tools out there at the moment, I'm aware, but again, I think some of them are aging and having new formatting, having new formats added to them can be a little bit tricky at times. Okay, next, we might skip over this one. So the ultimate idea of the OpenDictionary project was to provide a progressive learning framework. So level 1 of that is the dictionary, which is the one we've been working on at this point. Level 2 would be what is basically in a learner's guide to a language. So most of the learner's guide have a series of phrases which progressively teach the grammar of the language. And the Charles Darwin University digital tools were able to cross-reference that. So you could click on a word, it would say the word for you and link you to the dictionary entry and a whole bunch of other sentences that contain the same word. So I'm also interested in adding a glossing display for translation for that. And that would provide the second level of the framework. And then the third level would be to put just general literature content in the language into that as well. So written stories or video or audio with transcriptions, and they could be similarly linked and translatable through the same sort of process that the learning phrases use. So that was the original vision. And then the idea is to be able to provide, I mean, as a kind of side effect of that, we get the transfer between formats. For example, here, importing a toolbox text file and allowing it to be collaboratively worked on by a group of people using a web interface, and then at any time being able to export back to the original toolbox file. So that kind of gives you fairly seamless interchange between all the different formats you might need. And obviously, as part of that, we provide templates for the web dictionaries, the different layouts that you might want for print media or other formats you might want to go into. So I think that probably just about covers it.
Yeah, and if you'd like to play around with the dictionary a bit in your own time, we've included the link to the public side of the dictionary, so you can have a look at the Malm dictionary. It's not quite finished yet, so you might find a few missing links and that kind of thing. And if you want to play around with the admin interface, we're going to send around a test interface link during the conference, and you can play around with it. And if you want to chat to either of us about it, feel free to email us. Yeah, we'd love to talk about it.
Yeah, thanks, Ruth, and thanks everyone for listening.